What's up, Deckheads? It's Brandon here from Two Dudes One Deck. I'm doing a solo intro for this video. We've got some gameplay for you today, showcasing some Lord of the Rings homebrews. Our friend Jim is playing Smeagol, helpful guide. I'm piloting Sauron the Dark Lord, and Corey has Galadriel of Lothlorien. Unfortunately, our audio got corrupted, so we had to do some voiceovers for this one, but we hope you enjoy what you see, and now let's get into the game. Turn 1, Jim plays Llanowar Waste and Jeweled Lotus. He cracks the Lotus for 3 green and taps his land to play Smeagol, Helpful Guide, and passes the turn. Corey plays Oboro Palace in the Clouds and taps it to play Fairy Seer. He scries 2 and puts 1 on top and 1 on the bottom. On Brandon's turn, he plays Verdant Catacombs and fetches for an Underground Sea before passing. Jim plays a Swamp, then pays a colorless to play Soul Ring. Brandon stops this by paying 2 life to play Mental Misstep. This pisses Jim off and ignites a blood feud that lasts for the rest of the game, so Jim hits Brandon for 4 damage with his Smeagol. Corey, happy to sit back and let this all unfold, decides to play a forest into Sigiled Starfish and then pass the turn. Brandon, with a victim complex, plays Sulphurous Springs and passes his turn. Jim plays Windswept Heath and fetches for a Bayou. He then plays Nazgul. The ring tempts him, so he uses Smeagol's ability to take a land from Brandon and gets an island. He makes Nazgul the ring bearer and hits Brandon for another 4 damage. Corey plays Prismatic Vista to go get an island. He then plays Remunap Excavator and passes his turn. Brandon draws a card and passes. Jim plays Life from the Loam to get back his Windswept Heath. He plays the Heath and hits Brandon for 4 more damage. At the end of Jim's turn, Corey taps his Starfish to scry 1 and puts it on the bottom. Corey plays Gaia's Cradle and uses it to play Galadriel of Lothlorien. He uses the Starfish to scry 1 and reveals the card with Galadriel to get a tapped Rivendell. He then plays Mystic Speculation and reveals after scrying to get a tapped forest. He pays the buyback and puts Mystic Speculation back into his hand. Brandon plays Tainted Pact at the end of Corey's turn to get a Polluted Delta. Brandon plays the Delta to fetch Volcanic Island. He plays Bilbo Retired Burglar and passes the turn. Jim plays Spore Frog and attacks Brandon for 6. He then sacrifices Spore Frog to activate Smeagol's ability and take a Badlands from Brandon. Nazgul gets another +1/+1 counter, and Jim passes. Corey uses Prismatic to fetch again, and then plays Exploration. He uses Prismatic to fetch again, and plays Lifecrafter's Bestiary and scries with his Starfish. He reveals a forest, so it comes into play tapped. He then plays Beast Whisperer and pays for the Bestiary to draw a card before passing his turn. Brandon plays Careful Study and discards Ponder and Swansong. He attacks Jim with Bilbo and makes a treasure, and then passes his turn. Jim casts Arcane Signet and attacks Brandon for 6. Brandon responds by casting Terminate on Smeagol. This resolves, and Jim only ends up hitting Brandon for 2. Corey scries 1 on his upkeep from the Bestiary and bottoms the 1. He reveals Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, with Galadriel, and then draws it for his turn. He casts Elrond and draws from Beast Whisperer and the Bestiary. He then scries from Elrond and bottoms the card. He flips Misty Rainforest and it comes into play tapped. He scries 1 again with Starfish and chooses to not reveal. He plays Prismatic and Scalding Tarn and passes the turn. Brandon hits Jim for 1 with Bilbo, makes a treasure, and passes, losing the blood feud. Jim pays 2 life to play Overgrown Tomb, untapped, and casts Bolus the Citadel. Brandon pays 3 to play Force of Negation and counter the Citadel. Jim makes empty threats at Brandon before attacking with Nazgul and passing. At the end of Jim's turn, Corey scries 2 and reveals Temple of Mystery, which lets him scry 1. Corey plays Avenger of Zendikar and makes 13 0/1 plant tokens. He plays Verdant Catacombs and puts a +1/+1 counter on each plant. He fetches for 3 lands, which makes the plants bigger. He plays Prismatic again and fetches again to make the plants bigger again. He plays Augury Owl and gets to draw from Beast Whisperer and Bestiary before scrying 3 from the Owl. He fetches 1 more time with a fetch land he forgot about, and taps 8 to play Craterhoof Behemoth. Brandon responds with Demonic Consultation, naming Force of Will. It's about 8 cards down, and he pitches Flusterstorm to counter Craterhoof with Force of Will. Corey scries with the Starfish again and passes. Brandon plays Arcane Signet, then hits Jim 1 more time for 1 damage and makes a treasure. Jim draws and both he and Brandon concede. Corey wins with Galadriel. Congratulations, Corey. You little bitch.